Thanks for tagging along for yet another episode of Project Creep here. You know, we keep finding more stuff to modify and change until we get everything we like. But I think we get there today, so enjoy. All right, so I just took the fender off and I marked the inside fender lip almost touches this, so right along that line. And these holes are where the old bolts bolted into the fender lip. The way International did it was they put these tabs on the inside and then that bolted through. Just kind of nice. The bolt's mostly hidden. So what I'm going to try and do here is just on that line roll this metal up and give us a new lip that we can then recreate some kind of mounting flange. Or in the back here I'm going to end up, so on the back side of the fender I just rolled a piece of 16 gauge. It's about 1 3/8 wide, and that's going to lay in here like so. And this piece, the 16 gauge, is actually going to get welded to the inside lip of the fender just to make that lip a little wider. And that's going to push it over into here, and then I'll match it up by drilling holes in the in this lip that I've welded on. And we'll grind down this inside weld so that it's basically pretty. With this on there, it'll give us a way to bolt the inner fender to the outer fender and make it nice and stable. But for now, what I want to do is take a dolly, and this dolly has kind of a sharp edge on it. We're just going to lay it in here, and you're not going to try and roll it all in one shot. You're just going to roll it a little bit at a time. This down here's got a pretty good curve in it or whatever, so it may not roll the way this top part did. Came out pretty easy. Thought I was going to leave that lip on there, but that won't work to leave that on. Fender itself goes over the top of this, so I got to flatten that out. I thought I would be able to leave it just to add a little strength, but it won't work. See how this blended in really well? In fact, I could take a little more off there. I've got a little bit of a low spot right there, and this upper panel is a little low compared to the bottom panel, so we need to get in there with a hammer and dolly and hammer this seam, which will be easier when the fender is off the inner fender there. So yeah, we've got a little low spot. So we're able to take some material off this way, but if we try and go this way, we've just got a little valley there, so that we'll just hammer that out, and then we can come back and work on it a little bit more. Got most of this corner done. So on the inner fender right here, I'll show you in just a minute when I take this off. I was dollying that out, trying to make that lip, and down here in this bottom corner, it just got really complicated, and metal was going all which directions, so I ended up just cutting it. So we'll have to put in about, right there, about that much of a lip in there. But otherwise, I think we're getting pretty close. I'm gonna get my welder out, and I'm gonna weld up a few more of these holes. Actually, we've got here and here and there, 3 holes, 1 or 2 dots. And I think this one's just about welded up, so let's knock that out real quick. Just looking for pinholes. You can look in where it's dark, and sometimes you'll see light through there. We've got them all. Probably find another dozen when we move the fender. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the fender off. We're going to let these cool. Actually, I'm going to make a piece for this inner fender real quick, so I'll be right back. So what we're starting with is just some 18 gauge, and it's not really wanting to focus. And I made it about 6.5 inches long, ½ inch longer than what we really kind of need. And then I did about 2 inches wide and broke it in the middle. And it's gonna go right here. Well, we gotta put this curve in it, and then we'll come back and trim it to actually fit what we're doing. We needed to leave enough in it that we could put it in the shrinker stretcher. And so we want this to curve to match this fender, so we need to come in and stretch this side over here so that it will make this expand out. So like I said, we're going to stretch this one side. Just start a little bit at a time. So we'd have, even though we only need about 1/4 inch of flange and on the side we're stretching, and a little more than that, maybe 1/2 inch or so on the other side, we need enough that we can get it in the jaws and do some good. Now don't do a whole lot at one time. Just take your time. We're already getting pretty close. Alright, so we've been stretching that, and I've just done a little bit at a time. So if I put this in here, so it follows really well till about right here. And from here down, I've already stretched it too much. So we'll put it in the other side and shrink it a little bit. And let's test fit that. Now we're real good to about the last 1.5 inches. So we're really close. This piece goes in right here. And what we need to do is mark where I cut it before, and then we can trim it and tack it on. You can see we're not going to be using very much of it. We basically just need the bend, and then on this side we need to take off all of this, and then all of this on this side. So I'll have a little piece here, but it doesn't take very long to make them. I got our piece tacked in here, so we're ready to pull that fender off, and then we need to work this lip from about here to here. I've made a couple marks just to make sure I know basically, and we just need it to bend up a little bit further, and then I think we're going to be ready to test fit this on the truck. Now you can see that piece tacked in right here. think you can. That's tacked in right there, so we'll go ahead and weld it from this side, grind it back down, and then we can start figuring out where do we need to put some tabs. Try and reuse that factory hole, probably put another one down here, and then the other side we're going to end up doing it vertically just because of how big the flange is out here. Probably let that cool a little bit. I'll go ahead and work this area from right about here here that I want to kind of rework the bend just a little bit. Very nice. And then I haven't trimmed this back because I don't know exactly where the fender needs to go until we get it back on the truck. Alright, now one more thing I'm going to do before we move this over there is I've got some of these blind nuts, panel nuts. I'm going to get one on here and weld it in. There'll be another one down here, but until I get that distance set, it's kind of hard to go ahead and figure where that one is. This area is not going to be moving very much, so I can go ahead and weld this one on. Almost made the mistake of welding that on there, which means I made the hole too big, but I can live with that. This has to go on the fender itself. These panel nuts are made to where they kind of stick through the metal. They have some little offset feet. If you take a spot welder, you can spot weld these in right on those tabs, and works really well. I didn't want to dig out another welder. Alright, we got it on the truck. That all looks pretty good. So right now we've got the inner fender adjust a little bit high in the front, which would help pull some of this back. Having never worked on a Scout before, I'm kind of thinking the thing to do is loosely bolt the inner fender in place, take the door off, bolt the fender in place. I'm trying to think here for like when we go to paint it. So really what we want to do is take the door, the inner fender, all that off, do all the jams, get the inside of the fenders painted or coated. I think I'm going to just put bed liner coating on the inside of them. But get those prepped, then bolt the fender on and the inner fender on, and the inner fender has to go on before the fender, but there's a couple bolts on the inside here, right in here, right about here, that are not accessible when the fender is on. So we got to figure that out. We're going to trim about 1/4 of an inch off the inner rocker, or the outer rocker here, and it's kind of going to be a pie shape. And then we'll make us a panel to go from the fender
to this flange over here, and it'll get welded to the fender. Yeah, it'll get welded to the fender and then bolted to the inner flange that we made before when we were doing the floors. And I think the shape looks really good. Normally you would the door, line it up to the quarter panel and the rocker panel, then mount your fender and line it up to the door, but you're basically running the fender into the edge of the door just to get it to go past. So there's no way to take this fender on and off once it's painted and without doing damage either to the fender or the door or both. These are the bolts that I was talking about that are on the inside of the fender. Two things I noticed. One, there's this square hole here, so I might be able to get to 2, even 3 of them from there. These 2 I could get from the cowl, or well, there's actually a third one here. I could get from the cowl or from this fresh air vent for the heater. So I think the trick will be just to keep these all loose. Do all your adjusting from the ones on the inside and get this just roughly in place. Yeah, get the fender mated up to the jamb and then bring this to wherever the fender is at that point. So, because there's really almost no adjustment on the back side of this fender. So let's see what it looks like now. Let's get those loosened up.
It's 18 gauge, 6 inches wide, and we're just gonna form it in here. that's about it for this week. It's Thursday night. It's our date night, and I'm not missing that to play with this. But I think we got a pretty good portion of stuff done. We finished that inner fender lip and ready to start making some of the bolting locations. We've taken the door off so that we could go ahead and get this fender mounted properly. And we've started working this lower corner section here, so we'll continue that next week. I'll see you then. Thanks again for watching.